Using outdated learning tactics is only going to leave you further behind. Again, this is why I think learning just what you need to know to take your next step and then implementing it is going to be best. Many people are relying on AI in a way that removes them from any learning at all. They want to get an output and just copy paste that and put it on the internet. And that's not helping. That's actually adding to the problem.
As adults, we slowly lose this attraction to indiscriminate learning to satisfy our curiosity and in a way mold ourselves into thinking that learning has to take place as a means to acquire a skill, get better at something, or getting a promotion. And that is how we kill our curiosity. By sucking the pleasure out of learning because we've made it a process that needs justification.
Fear, to me, is a sign that there is something there on the other end that is amazing. It means that I'm putting myself outside of my comfort zone, which is where growth happens. My worst fear, truly now, is to feel complacent, to feel like I got everything I need. The parts of the brain that light up when you are fearing something are the same parts of the brain that light up when you are excited about something.
That is what courage is as well, right? Is being fearful and doing it anyway.
You've spent your whole life climbing a ladder and only to realize that you've climbed the wrong ladder.
You don't learn much by winning. You feel good, but you don't learn much. But by failing, you sure learn a lot.
Removing ourselves from just-in-case learning or information to just-in-time information so we can get to taking action faster. Action over information is really what this is about. And so the idea of lean learning is
Pat Flynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pat, you recently published the book Lean Learning, How to Achieve More by Learning Less. Pat, if you could please introduce us to the concept and explain why hoarding information just in case might actually be hurting how we learn.
Yes, we now live in this world where we have access to so much information. More and more is coming every single day. And if we don't learn how to control the information that's coming our way and what we're using and where our energy is going, we're just going to be left behind. It's so interesting because we live, yes, in this world with access to everything, but many people feel even more left behind, which doesn't make sense because for the longest time, having information was powerful. Having information was the way to succeed. But today it's different. It's utilizing the right information at the right time for the right reasons. Removing ourselves from just-in-case learning or information to just-in-time information so we can get to taking action faster. Action over information is really what this is about. And so the idea of lean learning is, in a way, removing out the things we don't need or just don't need right now, trusting the process, knowing that when we need those resources for later steps, they'll be there. Not reading the whole thing first before taking action, but taking action as you go. But then leaning into the things to go deeper into them so we can have better understanding, so we can lead ourselves to mastery. And that's what this is about. Whatever it is, whether it's learning how to be a public speaker, to speaking a language, to getting good at anything from fishing to gymnastics, you can learn your way into these things much faster. And this is how I've been able to do a lot of different things in different worlds and do them very well. Not because I'm a genius, not because I'm immediately good at them, but because I found a process and a framework to learn my way into speedrunning skill acquisition.
Right. So lean learning is about about focusing on the right information at the right time. And you said how time ago you had to know that you have to have the knowledge, you have to retain all that knowledge. But now we have tools like ChatGPT and we have all that knowledge in an access of just instant information. Do you see AI as the ultimate lean learning companion? Or do you think we risk outsourcing the very productive struggle that makes learning stick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question because there are pros and cons to everything, right? And with great power comes great responsibility. Now, with AI, using it as a way to fast forward going to the points where you as a human are needed is great. For example, market research and competitor analysis, all this stuff that would used to take hours, if not sometimes days, weeks, months to do, we can get in an instant so that we can get to the parts that matter more. It almost levels the playing field for that kind of thing, the research and the sort of pre-components of it, so that you can get to the service. So if you're a business, for example, I teach a lot of people business, the market research is a really important component. And a lot of people try to jump into that. but you can use tools to help you fast forward your learning about who it is you're serving and what they're already being served with, who your competitors are. Learning about those things quicker allows you to get to the point of creation faster. And I love
Hmm.
that. However, many people are relying on AI in a way that removes them from any learning at all. They want to get an output and just copy paste that and put it on the internet. And that's not helping. That's actually adding to the problem. And so there's a balance there that has to happen. I think that learning comes from real life human experience, not from just the information you can get from these tools. But you can get
Exactly.
information from these tools to enhance the human experience that you can get for yourself and for others that are involved.
Right. Have you seen these people that ask Grok on X all the time? Can you explain me this post, or can you elaborate what does the author mean?
Yeah.
Not even learning, but even the mere thinking. We
Right.
have outsourced it to AI. What is going to become of our brains?
There's going to be a diversion of different kinds of people. There are the people who are going to completely outsource every level of thinking for AI
Yeah,
and like tell it to me like I'm a third grader and you'll always be a third grader, right? That's one part of it.
exactly.
And I see that on X, and of course, X being associated with Grok, obviously, you'll see those answers first. And there's something to be said, however, for using tools like that to better understand and summarize. But when you just completely and immediately offload any level of thinking,
Mhm,
then that I don't think is great. You know, you still need a baseline foundation level of thinking. You need to learn how to understand things because it is those who just kind of remain where kind of those people are that are just going to kind of cluster up and be with people like them. It's when you think a little bit deeply, when you go further, when you take that basic information and then use it and utilize it, then great. But then there's other people who are so anti AI, for example, who will never be able to experience the power of fast forwarding their learning and who
mm,
are going to kind of stay in the Stone Ages, right? So again, it's about this idea of balancing. It's sort of like we've seen this with other tools in the past, like the calculator. A lot of people were against the calculator because it's like, oh, now you're never going to know how to do numbers. Sure, there are some people maybe who kind of offload everything, but you know, you still need a basic foundation of how things work to be able to even understand how to use a calculator. But you can use a calculator to get even faster to get answers to then understand everything from your personal finances to the business projections to whatever it might be, so that you can make smarter decisions from there. So again, the tools are always going to be there. It's
yeah,
how you use them and when that matter.
yeah. In the most simplistic way, it might make stupid people stupider and smart people
Smarter people
smarter.
smarter.
Yeah,
Exactly, dude.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
All right. So stepping into adulthood, one of the things you realize is there's so much unlearning that you have to do from the things school taught us
Mhm.
that simply don't reflect how the real world works. Looking back in time, what has been the biggest thing that you were taught wrong that you had to unlearn?
I mean, so many things. We could talk
Sure.
for hours about that. You know, again, I'm very appreciative of the schooling that I had, but I learned so much more actually being out in real life.
Hmm.
Everything from trying to understand all the parts about something before diving into it. I went to school for 5 years for architecture, for example, and I loved my time at UC Berkeley. It's a premier school in the architecture world and in the US. And I learned more about what it really meant to become an architect in my first month after working versus my 5 years of school. I learned so many things that I didn't need or were almost outdated already because of how quickly that industry was moving, and all industries are moving very quickly. So if everything is moving quickly, using outdated learning tactics is only going to leave you further behind. Again, this is why I think learning just what you need to know to take your next step and then implementing it is going to be best. And I'm noticing there are some schools, at least here in the U.S., that are beginning to start to think about implementing this combination between learning and doing, using local businesses to do internships so that you can actually be in the workforce to understand. And that's such a good thing, especially for younger people, to get those experiences early so that they can explore. And that the exploration is a key part of learning, right? The
Hmm.
ability to um, go where your energy wants to go. In school, you can't do that. You had a curriculum, you had to learn these things. There was literally, at least when I went to school, there was like no room for freedom to play. no room
Mhm.
for curiosity to take hold. It was all, here are all the classes you're going to take between middle school and high school and college, and then you're going to get this job, then you're going to get this payment, then you're going to have this life, and like you have to make that decision now when you're 12 years old. It's like that's how do you even know who you are or what's available to you when you're, just a young teenager or even a tween, right? So that's one thing. Another thing is that the learning in like the textbooks and the quizzes, again, those are all learning strategies to kind of get an understanding of something, but the true understanding again happens from collaboration, discussion, communication. Some of my favorite classes in school were the ones where we didn't have textbooks. We were learning from having discussions, from Socratic seminars, these kinds of things where we were actually, yes, it was hard to get up on in front of the class and present, but those taught me because I had, like I talk about in the book, a force function. I had a date that I had to get up in front of people and teach something, something that I did or something that I learned, and that forced me to learn things even more deeply because I knew I was going to communicate with other people in my class, and I was more likely to learn and consume when I had a peer tell me something and how in their voice they experienced something versus like a teacher who's just basically using curriculum from a textbook, right? So the people part of this, the executive skills that aren't taught in school, the presenting and communication skills that are really important for accelerating today. And if only I learned how to do public speaking in my teens, I would be that much further ahead of my
Imagine that.
class.
Yeah.
Like this is where I'm wanting education to go, is what are the things that no matter what the tech is that are outside of just information alone that will help you stand out as an employee or an entrepreneur. It is communication, is presenting, it is understanding finances, right? Nobody taught anybody finances or budgeting in school. The only thing
Zero.
we did was learn how to use a checkbook, and nobody uses a checkbook anymore. Um, Again, I could go on and on, but there's a lot of things like that are from school that were, frankly, a waste of time.
Absolutely. No, man, that's so relatable. That is so relatable. And I was part of a different educational system. I grew up in Greece, but I think they have this resemblance among them that they feel pretty much the same wherever you
Mhm.
go. For me, the biggest thing was my relationship with failure. I
Oh
grew up
yeah,
thinking that failure was something to be ashamed of, that failing made me a loser, that if I fail at something, I should give up because that is a sign is not the thing for me.
right.
And that made me so afraid to fail.
Right,
Now,
which will then allow you to not try, to not to do new things. Like becoming an entrepreneur was the hardest thing for me because, like you, I grew up trying to be
mhm,
perfect. I had a 4.2 grade point average, which is like all A's, and I went to the best school. And again, I did everything the way I was supposed to. So when I got let go from my job as an architect in 2008, it was very hard for me to transition. My first thought after I got laid off was, okay, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I need to go back to school. I need to spend 4 years
yeah,
and tens of thousands of dollars to learn this before I even try. But I didn't have that money, nor did I have the time. So I was forced to figure things out and make mistakes and learn that mistakes are great. We think mistakes are going to
mhm,
derail us and, like you say, mean that we're failures, but they actually create the guardrails that you can work now in between. They teach you what not to do faster. So I like to tell my students, fail faster because that's how
exactly,
you get to answers
exactly.
and direction.
Yeah, they're almost as a prerequisite to success. Like
100%.
you don't learn much by winning. You feel good, but you don't learn much. But by failing, you sure learn a lot.
Absolutely.
And what you said about being perfect is also a side effect of, or I don't know the right word for being being a son or a daughter of immigrant parents. Well, for many, the standard is so high because, of course, they want to see the kid do great. They themselves maybe are uneducated, never finished high school.
Hmm.
So I see how that pressure of being perfect can, just paralyze you.
Yeah. And I grew up in a household. My mom is from the Philippines, so it's very, again, very traditional. My dad also, uh, who was from New York, but also very traditional in the sense of education. And you're right. There's this sense of like, I would be letting my parents down if I didn't do great
Mhm.
in school. They worked so hard to get here. I don't want to let them down because we were taught and told and fed this, yeah, it's harsh to say it, but maybe propaganda that this is the way to succeed. You go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get this job, this house with a picket fence and 2.5 kids, and now you are successful. But I mean, we've all heard of the American dream. It's changing now because people are there and they're unhappy.
Yeah.
They're realizing that they went down
Right.
somebody else's path, an older path. Maybe that was once a good path to go down, but the world is changing, technology is changing. Um, our mental health is becoming something that we're starting to realize is very important. And being happy and joyful is something that's really key. And a lot of us have gone down these paths without those considerations and are now starting to wake up to that. And I think that's really great. However, education at least is slow to move and slow to change, but we have again access to all the resources we can need, all the people, all the inspiration. And the biggest thing is to not be over inspired, to not be over influenced by information, but find the one path that you want to try for a while, find the one resource to help you go down that path and see what happens. And it might be a failure, but guess what? That's good because then you can understand that maybe shouldn't do it this way this time, or maybe this isn't the direction I want to go down. I heard it put one way one time where you've spent your whole life climbing a ladder, and only to realize that you've climbed the wrong ladder.
Exactly.
So you want to find out which ladders are there now. Maybe take a few steps up a couple. No, I don't like it here. Okay, I'm going to try this ladder. Try this ladder, and once you find that ladder that's yours, boom, your focus. No other ladders matter, and then you got to give yourself time and grace as you find your way there.
Yeah, and again, people will not try different ladders because of, well, my friends and peers know me this way. I really long of, a deep conversation. I myself long for deep conversations, and I couldn't get that with my friends.
Mm.
And then I said I'm gonna start a podcast, and I was so afraid. I was just paralyzed months and months, not taking the first step because, oh, my friends will judge me like, oh, they will realize I don't want to have these conversations with them because I can't. It's just nonsense. Again, it's just fear.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to fear, as you said before. After all this success and your relationship with fear, as you already discussed, do you still carry a hint of fear inside you now, after whoever you've become?
I have fear still,
Hmm.
but I understand it now. Fear to me is a sign that there is something there on the other end that is amazing. It means that I'm putting myself outside of my comfort zone, which is where growth happens.
Hmm.
My worst fear, truly now, is to feel complacent, to feel like I got everything I need in terms of my learning journey, because it is getting outside of that comfort zone where, like I said, growth happens. So here's what I do now with fear. Like, for example, public speaking. I was so deathly afraid of public speaking for so long until I finally said yes to a friend who was putting on a conference and an event. And that finally got me going, finally forced me to do it. And I wasn't perfect, not even close. But I have fallen in love with public speaking so much now. I've spoken on 350 different stages since
Oof.
2011. I've gotten paid over $1 million across the years, which I never thought I would get paid to do something like this. And yet, when I go to talk, I still am fearful. But I understand it now because fear, the parts of the brain that light up when you are fearing something, are the same parts of the brain that light up when you are excited about something. The fear is just what you're telling yourself about what's firing in your brain. So for
I
many years,
see.
it was, I'm going to be terrible. People are going to hate what I have to say. Nobody is going to listen to me. But now I've changed the story in my head about those feelings. I said, I am just way excited about this event, or it means that I care enough about this that I'm going to make sure it's great.
Hmm.
Right. And so that is now I actually look for the fear now. When I'm trying something new, like when I wrote Lean Learning, I wrote it in a way that wasn't like, oh yeah, this is easy. I wrote it in a way and positioned it in a way that is, it is a little controversial. It is fearful a little bit for me to write about
Hmm.
something that I had, I don't have a PhD or anything in psychology. I'm not a marketing professor like all these other amazing authors who write about their studies. I am just me. And there was that fear. It was like, okay, well, I can take it one way. Okay, well, I'm not qualified like these people. Why would people read this? Like, who am I to write this book? But
Right.
I know that that's a sign that if I do this well, it could actually be used to my advantage. Yeah, I'm not any of those things, just like my reader. We're relatable. We're the same. This is
Hmm.
exactly why most of the stories in the book are just from my past that people can relate to. right? So this is to my advantage, actually, not my disadvantage, because of the story I'm telling myself about it.
Right. So the ability to not run away from fear, but towards it. Because that is what courage is as well, right? Is being fearful and doing it anyway. So that's how you
Exactly.
will build that courage in you and that character to, as you also sometimes mention, is like this skill stacking that although you might not need it now, it just builds up to something you're gonna do years and years later.
Right. I,
And yeah, sorry.
I love how you said that. Like, courage is being afraid but doing it anyway.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
this is this is what we love about our most loved heroes in stories, right? They have flaws just like we do. If a hero in a story was perfect, we wouldn't fall in love with them, right? And we are writing our own story right now, and we are all flawed in one way, shape, or form. Yet it is up to us to determine whether or not we want to power through and actually, give things a shot and try. And things, when you reach those momentous moments where you actually do accomplish something, they're so much better when you've been challenged. If things are accomplished because they're easy, you don't think about it much. It is those battles that you have with those metaphorical dragons that you slay that almost got you, that help you become a stronger person and then inspire people around you.
Well said. Well said. Okay, so you mentioned how the education system failed you, but I'm curious, how are you preparing your kids differently in their education so that you minimize the negative effects schooling has on them, so that you set them up for a life of success and fulfillment?
Yes. This is very important to me. I mean, I have two kids. My son is 15. He's going to be in his second year in high school. And this is close to the time where he's going to have to decide, like, where does he want to go in life, when he's out of the house. So, this is very important conversations that are happening in my family right now. And then my daughter's 12, just a few years behind. So, similarly, she's thinking the same thing. So, there's a few things we've done to sort of equip our kids with hopefully the best opportunities, because that's our position as parents, my wife and I. We want them to see what opportunities are available to them and to know that they can go there one way or another. We are not telling them you have to go to college. We are saying you can go to college. If it makes sense for you, great, we'll support you. If it doesn't,
Mhm.
great, we'll support you. But you'll have to figure out where you want to go. And the only way for them to know how to do that is to have experiences already, to not wait until they're graduated to start seeing what else is out there, but to actually get involved and participate already. So, for example, they're involved in my business. They're seeing what life is like as an entrepreneur. I'm telling them not to become an entrepreneur, but to show them what it's like, so that when they are making decisions about
Nice.
where they want to go, they'll understand it and be able to make a decision based on what they want to do in their energy, not because I did it too, right? That's not what it's about. We're also trying to get as much traveling and experiences involved as possible, from local here and going to farms and different places where they can see how those kinds of businesses work and how those kinds of people live, to traveling to even other cultures to understand what traveling is like. And that might be an option for them, right? Letting that be on the table too. Maybe they don't go to school right away after school is over here in high school. In the States, maybe they go and travel and experience the world. And we're showing them what it's like to, for example, help guys. So, for example, very clearly, we've been to Japan recently, and Japan has a really amazing public transportation system. It's one of the best. And so instead of just going there and be like, hey guys, we got to go here, we got to go here, I'll tell my son, okay, well, we have to get to this place. How do we get there?
Nice.
Wait, what? No, no. Figure it out. What would you do? Because guess what? That's going to be a real life situation that's going to happen when you're an adult. So, we'll be here if you need us. If you have questions, I'll be your guide. But hey, get us to this restaurant at this time because we have a reservation. It's on the other side of Tokyo. Where do we go? And he can figure it out. And he makes mistakes, and that's okay. And we figure it out. And we, again, really, really consciously not making him feel bad for mistakes,
Hmm.
but versus just having conversations like, okay, if you were to do that again, what would you do differently next time? So
Well
now we're
said.
discussing it. We're not reprimanding him because of it, right? Because again, if we were to do what our parents did, both April, my wife, and I had parents that were very strict, be perfect, always do things the way you're supposed to, like never talk out of line. We were even training our kids from an early age. For example, when we picked them up from school, we wouldn't ask them the normal question, which is, how was school today? I
That's
mean,
it.
they just got
Simple
out
as
of
that.
school. They probably were tired or are tired of it. Why would they want to talk about how it was? Like, I probably know how it was because I was in school once before. Rather, like I'm talking like 7 to 8 years old, we started asking them questions like this. What's one thing you learned today that you could teach me? Oh my gosh, the eyes light up. For and when you think about this, for a parent, an older person who in many kids' eyes should know everything, to then go, "Hey, no, like what did you learn that I can understand now because you are also powerful enough to learn something and teach others even if they're older than you, even if they're your own parents." So we started to notice that the conversations we were having were so much deeper when we started positioning it that way versus what'd you do in school today? Like probably stuff they didn't really care about or want to do all the time versus, hey, what's the one thing that did light you up? Like tell us how we can do it too. And then let's do it together. Right. The other thing is as a parent, right, really trying to keep that connection strong with the kids. And over the years, of course, it's getting harder and harder because they have their friends and they have their own thing and they're teenagers now. There's hormones and all this other stuff happening. But the one thing that has really been helpful is whatever they are involved with or curious about, my wife and I, we get curious about that too. That curious word is really, really key. We want to learn what they're interested in versus having them be interested in what we are doing. So, for example, when the pandemic happened, my kids early on got into Fortnite and like the video game. And so instead of just going, "Oh, don't play that game," or just like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Okay, I'll talk to you at dinner. It's like I want to learn how to play too. So here's what I did. I use Lean Learning. I went to Fiverr. I hired a 14-year-old kid to train
To
me for
teach
2
you.
sessions, 30 minutes each, on how to just play Fortnite. It was some of the best investment I can make because then guess what? I could hang with my kids. We could play Fortnite together and I could understand the language a little bit more. Then they moved on to Pokemon, and I started getting curious about Pokemon. So I started asking them about Pokemon, playing it, and researching it, going onto YouTube. And then I started falling in love with the Pokemon community and collecting my own cards because I didn't grow up playing Pokemon. And then so it gave us something to work on together. And then the kids outgrew that. But I am still doing the Pokemon thing today. In fact, I have a YouTube channel that's almost at 2 million subscribers since COVID started talking about Pokemon, and now the kids are both employees in the business, and that's how they're getting involved in the
Really?
entrepreneurship. Yeah, they're both employees and they understand that it's not all just like fun and games. There's shipping and processing that we have to do. There's like script writing and all this other stuff. So it's getting my son, like for example, excited. He wants to start writing scripts for stories, for movies, and things like that. He's getting into music as well and wants to get involved with that too because he sees just how powerful music is when it's imported into these videos and how they change the mood of things. And he's a musician himself. So again, I know I'm rambling here, but just get involved, communicate, at, allow them to kind of drive the car, if you will, not until they actually have a license for real, but like allowing them to drive the conversation and kind of the communication is really key. So these are just different examples of how we're preparing the kids for it. Despite I do believe there's still an importance in the foundation of education, but we want to add on top of that. We're allowing them to understand what it's like to manage their own money and have a budget. We're helping them understand what it's like to actually make a decision and actually empowering them to, for example, travel in a foreign country and tell us where to go. And that stuff has been really key in who they're becoming.
Love that. Love that. No, that sounds like great parenting, and your kids will learn so much from that. Even if not now, like myself, they'll be 30 at some point and and think back, oh, so my parents were right about
Yeah,
many things.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, it's not
this is.
perfect. It doesn't feel perfect all the time, and it's not perfect, but, you know, I often have this quote that I share with my son. It's, "You can have anything in life that you want so long as you help other people get what they want." It's a Zig Ziglar quote, and
Mm.
he rolls his eyes he hates it, but he knows it,
He
and
might use it when he's 30.
exactly, and I've seen him use it before. He just like, "Dad, not again." Like, you know, anyway, it's just fun to be involved, and like you said, this is an investment in our time as parents into who they become as good people, good human beings, and really helping them understand. Like for example, another one is like, when small things like when we're at a restaurant, it's like, Dad, can you order my burger for me? No, you're gonna order it. No,
Yeah.
I have to talk. Like I have to say yes.
That's the point.
And this is a small little teaching moment. It's not, you're not like, and then after it's done, they're fine. And they start to slowly realize like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Right. If we were to always do that for them, how are they going to, when they're older, do things for themselves?
As you were speaking about your son there, It reminded me of the story you have in the introduction of your book about your school's, about your son's preschool story.
Hmm.
And that reminded me that as adults, we slowly lose this attraction to indiscriminate learning to satisfy our curiosity and, in a way, mold ourselves into thinking that learning has to take place as a means to acquire a skill, get better at something, or getting a promotion. And that is how we kill our curiosity
Hmm.
by sucking the pleasure out of learning because we've made it a process that needs justification. I'm curious, when was the last time you allowed yourself the joy of learning without needing a return on investment?
I mean, this is very, very recently, actually, and it relates to a hobby. There's a part of the book I also talk about the inspiration matrix, how it's important to have something in your
Hmm.
recreational area, something that you could take a break into, something that gives you some breath amongst the busy work and responsibilities that you have. And for me, that's fishing lately. And this was this was a year ago. I wanted to learn how to fish with a particular lure called a jig. It's like a big hook with like a skirt and it kind of moves up and down. And I fish for largemouth bass here in Southern California quite a bit, but I always was very, very terrible at fishing with a jig. So much so that I would always try because you can get bigger fish and it's more fun if you catch fish, but it's hard. And I would always try it. 5 minutes later, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm not good at this." I'd put it away and I go back to my other baits that I normally use, and I'd catch fish. And I would use that as confirmation bias. See, I'm no good at the jig. I'm going to go back to this other thing. So one day, I went on a boat and I brought no other baits except jigs, only jigs. This was a force function that I did for myself because I really wanted to learn this. And I got on the boat, had a pole and my jigs, and I remember fishing for it for 5 minutes. I was like, "Oh, I'm no good at this," just like always. And I go back and look at my tackle box. I have no choice. I have to fish with this jig. And so I did. Several hours go by, no bites. Finally, in the afternoon, I get a bite, and it just unlocked. I didn't catch it, but it unlocks. Like, oh my gosh, like it can actually happen. It worked. And by the end of the day, I caught two fish with a jig, and now that's my go-to bait. I go to that every single time, and I'm now teaching like my friends who I take fishing with me how to fish with a jig. And I didn't go to school. I didn't like pay somebody thousands of dollars or even a coach or anything. I just found a way to force myself to learn that, and now I can even teach others and help spread that joy of jig fishing with others. So I know it's like a very recreational example, but this is a recent example of learning something where it's just like, you know what? Even if I don't catch anything, I'm still out there enjoying my time and making progress and figuring things out as I go. And if I fail, that's okay. Like I'm just going to try again the next day.
Sweet, sweet, I like that. And has it been a skill you regret spending time learning it because it has been a complete waste of time at the end?
No, anytime you consciously are trying to learn something for the purpose of getting better, it's never a waste of time. Because again, you start to learn about these things that do work and do not. For example, even with the jig fishing, I started to understand for a while. And again, when I was learning how to do this, I would watch YouTube videos. Again, this is lean learning. I want to learn this thing. I'm going to find the one resource to learn from. I have a fisherman person on YouTube that I learned from. And I watched one of his videos about jig fishing. That's the one resource I learned. I could have spent 2 months watching every video from every creator. But no, I just watched the one because I wanted to follow his process. And I realized that when I was jig fishing, I didn't have what's called a trailer in the back. It's like a small plastic thing with legs to kind of give it a little bit more motion when I'm bobbing it up and down. And so I bought some, I used that, and that's what helped me get to my first fish. And so, even though I had quote unquote wasted time not using that before, I still started to understand what kind of jigs were there, how to fish it, all these things that I didn't, I just had to find the right puzzle pieces as I went. And I'm grateful for those early ones, but it was when I put that final puzzle piece in that things started to work. So, no, it wasn't a waste of time because these things always continue to stack. And even if something I learned isn't the right way to do something, then I can understand, okay, I'm not going to waste my time with that again. Let me move on and I won't hang on to it in my brain, which is what a lot of us do. We hang on to a lot of things and that
Hmm.
just slows us down. It's
Yeah,
like extra weight as you're trying to run.
right. Nice, nice one. All right, Pat, last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
I think it depends on who you are speaking about as far as who is remembering me. If it's my kids, for example, I
Hmm.
imagine my kids in a cafe when they're older, they have their own families. My son and daughter meet up for lunch to catch up one day, and they're just talking about the amazing adventures and experiences that kind of we had together as a family, right? I don't want to be uh, remembered as somebody who was just like always working and kind of never around. I want to be somebody who was involved in their childhood and there with them and helping them unlock certain things. I, for example, have a few goals of things to teach my son before he leaves the house. He hasn't yet learned how to tie a tie, but that's one thing I want him to know how to do. How to cook an omelet and a few other basic things, so he can get that foundational cooking done before he leaves the house and things like that. So, I just want them to remember my wife and I as people who were always there for them and who helped guide them into the good citizens, hopefully that they can be, and carry that forward into their families as well. As
Right.
far as like my readership and my audience, you know, I don't want like worship or anything like that. That's not important to me. What's important is when a person goes, "Oh yeah, this is how I learned how to do this." Oh yeah, it was Pat Flynn who inspired me. That allowing for people to now go into other resources that I have to help them through that sort of butterfly effect is really what I want. Is it's sort of that legacy of information and inspiration, not just my name. I don't really care about that. Um, I think again in the Pokemon space where I'm in now with a lot of my videos that are being watched by millions of people, having kids and their parents when they're older go back and say, "Oh man, do you remember when we used to watch like Pat and his Pokemon channel? Yeah, that was so much fun." We do that with a lot of creators that we watched when our kids were younger, like Dan TDM and a few others, and like they provided great memories for us. And so that's kind of what I want to be remembered for. I'm just here to leave the earth better than when I came in, and that's kind of what I'm hoping I'm doing.
Nice. I like how you gave different answers for different aspects of your life because you're the first one to do it so far. Everyone just gives one answer what they
Oh,
want to be
really?
remembered
Oh,
for,
that's interesting.
but you're right because not everyone will remember you the same, and they shouldn't. Your
Right.
wife and kids should not remember you the way your corporate colleagues should. And yeah, I like how you just brought that that
Thank you.
diversity in your answer.
That thank you for that. I didn't even think about that compared to others. But I always, when I'm talking about serving and legacy and business, I always think about who is this for. That's always my first question because then you
Mm,
can reverse engineer how you help them because everybody's different, and that's really important to understand. So I appreciate you calling that out in the answer there. That's really observant.
Thank you. Right, Pat, thank you so much for the awesome conversation.
Thank you. This was great. Appreciate it.
If you like this episode with Pat Flynn and you crave more conversations on self development, make sure you check out this clip with Kevin Palmieri. You're going to love it.